Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, this is Redberry Leo here, and welcome to another Civil Air Patrol video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about emergency services, and summarizing the different qualifications that you can get, and talk a little bit about the process that you need to take in order to get to that point in training where you can go out and do actual real-life missions. So let's start with the first step. You are required to be a member of Civil Air Patrol, and if you are a senior member, you need to complete what's called your Level 1, which is a summary conversation with the professional development officer in your squadron. And so in order to complete your GES, there are two requirements. You have to either complete your Achievement 1 or Level 1 training within Civil Air Patrol. If you are a cadet, then you will finish your Achievement 1. And if you are a senior member, then you have to finish Level 1. And then you have to complete the GES questionnaire, which is in something called the Learning Management System. In order to get to the Learning Management System, you go to Menu, you go to Online Learning, Learning Management System, you go to Access, which is the new Learning Management System, and then you have to take the introductory material to learn what Access is. And then after that, you can go ahead and take the GES 116 test. And upon completing that, you have your GES done. And in order to have any qualification within emergency services or participate in like the COVID assistance efforts, then you have to have your GES done. So that's just something to keep in mind. And it's a really straightforward open book test that asks you questions about like reimbursement, if you understand the process of just participating in some kind of exercise and how funding works. And though it isn't expected that you memorize everything, it's just important information that you need to know that's included on the quiz. So after completing your GES, you can choose whatever qualifications you would like to do. I'm going to go over going into GTM 3, GTM 2, GTM 1, GTL, talk a little bit about that, and I'm also going to discuss involvement with aircrew. So in order to be a GTM 3 or a ground team member level 3, which is the lowest level, you have to have your GES completed, and there are a few training courses that you're required to take through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, where you take the test and then you save the certificate and you post it onto eServices and get it approved by your emergency services officer. And there are a few familiarization and preparatory requirements, or F&P, in addition to like hands-on activities that you are required to demonstrate your skills. Okay, so F&P, familiarization and preparatory training, is to make sure that you have your 24-hour pack, which is kind of like all the materials that you will need in order to participate in some kind of emergency services mission or exercise. There's also some training involving like understanding hot and cold weather injuries, or knowing how a compass works. And each of these requirements are required to be checked off before you start doing the hands-on activities. So this is just something to keep in mind. If you are interested in doing emergency services, do your best to find all the materials that are listed in the 24-hour pack or the 72-hour pack. 72-hour pack is for longer missions, and 24-hour pack is for shorter missions. So I'll include a link to the 24-hour pack in the description down below. So if you want to take a look at that, then you can feel free to peruse it at your leisure to see what kind of materials you'll need. I am planning on doing a nice little video at some point going into each of the requirements for F&P for GTM 3. So each individual video will kind of discuss each one, and they'll probably be between like 5 to 15 minutes long each, just to give you little training modules. So look forward to that. But anyway, so in addition to the F&P being done, you have to have basic first aid completed, and you have to upload that certification. So if you've completed it and you've had it for 2 years, you have to get recertified, and recertification is typically cheaper than the original certification. But just try to get recertified before the 2 years is up. I think with the COVID stuff, you could get a 2-month or 3-month extension with the American Red Cross if you took it through them. but there are a few different first aid programs, so just make sure it meets the requirements of CAP and what you need to do for your training. So in addition to that, you have to attend some kind of in-person activity where you demonstrate your skills and like understanding how many whistle toots. Well, what does one whistle toot mean? What does two whistle toot mean? Or three? How do you halt a line search? Or what do you do when you find a clue for a missing person? What are steps that you can take if you get lost out in the wilderness? Stuff like that. Those are things that will be discussed with you, and you'll be evaluated on when you are out in the field doing those exercises. Additionally, like taking care of yourself, taking care of your wingman, that is evaluated. So just keep in mind that you need to be constantly hydrating and taking care of yourself, in addition to ensuring that your team members are also doing well. So I think that's a pretty good summary of GTM 3. It's just that you need to know that there's F&P, or the familiarization and preparatory section, that you're required to do for any emergency services qualification before you're supposed to technically do the O portion. So it's kind of like the hands-on like evaluation and observable behaviors that you are required to complete effectively. And someone who is a certified evaluator has to check you off on each of those things. So if you don't know who an evaluator might be, if you go into eServices and you look up 101 cards, you can find out who is actually an evaluator. So if you look up the person's last name and first name or CAP ID, you can find that person and see if they have a little diamond next to their name. And if they have a diamond, that means they are an evaluator. So make sure you have someone evaluating you if you are trying to complete your emergency services qualifications. So let's move on to level 2. Level 2 is the next level. It gets a little bit more challenging. There's a few more requirements involved, like talking about pace count and making sure that you are properly oriented and you can like navigate yourself on a map. It's not too many additional requirements, but you have to have your GTM 3 done before you can do GTM 2. So that's why there are fewer requirements, but it's building off of the foundation that you have. Okay, and then level, or GTM 1, or ground team member 1, is even more advanced on top of that, and like learning how to interact with dog teams and all of that kind of information. And you have to have GTM 2 and GTM 3 before you can get to that point. For GTL, or ground team leader, you are required to be over 18 years old in order to get it. And part of that is because when you are out in the field, sometimes you are working with people who are not Civil Air Patrol members. It might be the local law enforcement, or it might be like search and rescue operations, like outside of CAP's purview. And they want matured, like adults who are leading the team that can talk to them, that have the knowledge and the understanding of what's going on, and they can have like a positive two-way communication established between the ground team leader and whomever they might be working with. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you want to be GTL, then you have to wait until you're that old, and you have to have your GTM 3 done before you can do GTL. However, you do not need to have GTM 2 or GTM 1 in order to get GTL. Just GTM 3, though it is useful to know the higher levels, just so that you have a well-rounded knowledge of how you get to complete different activities when you are doing search and rescue exercises. Okay, so now that I have talked a little bit about the ground side, there are additional positions, but typically if you're brand new to emergency services, I should say, then those are the things that you can try to build up towards. And then there's higher levels of, well, the emergency services, like being a ground branch director, where you are in charge of multiple ground teams and like coordinating search efforts. But that's later down the line, and as you become more familiar with Civil Air Patrol, then you can learn more information about those things. In terms of air crew is where you have to be 18 years or older, and there's 4 different positions associated with it. Mission scanner is the first one that you can do. Mission observer, airborne photographer, and then mission pilot. If you were a mission pilot, then you have to get mission observer first, and you can skip over scanner since you already have your pilot's license and you have the number of hours required to meet that. And so you just get observer and then mission pilot, and then you're good to go. There are different types of pilots, but I'm not going to discuss it in depth in this video. I just want to do an overview of the different aircrew areas. So mission scanner is essentially where you are learning what a sectional chart is. You kind of learn how to inspect an airplane that you aren't supposed to memorize it. You can learn different search techniques with eye movements and how you overcome air sickness. It's just a very basic orientation course of how we do air search and rescue, where you look out the window, you do your point about like 3 miles away, and then you do ... and you have little fixated points that you go quickly, and you just do it straight out the window from where you're looking. You don't look ahead or look behind. And when you're doing a grid search, which is where you've got a grid and then you're going back and forth in the airplane, when you're doing those turns, then you keep your eyes in front, you reset, and then you look back out the window again. That's basically it. Now, the mission observer is a step up from mission scanner, where you use something called the Becker system. And the Becker system, it is used to kind of detect ELT signals, and it's typically on the bottom of the airplane. And so you tune it into 121.5, which is the emergency distress radio frequency, which it'll make the sounds on. And you listen to it and you try to triangulate the position of that ELT on the ground, and then you can communicate with ground teams from the air and just have that dialogue to be able to find whatever ELT is going off, whether it's an actual emergency or someone just forgot to make sure it was off. Additionally, they need to make sure that they're keeping a log and working actively with the rest of the team to make sure that they're communicating actively with the mission pilot. The mission pilot, their sole job is to just fly the airplane and make sure that they are following the proper search pattern procedures that they're doing. Like if they're doing a outward spiral where they start in the middle and they work their way out, or if they're doing like along the route where they follow the last known route of where the plane is going, and they go on one side of that route and then go on the other, just to kind of like follow the most recent known coordinates of the plane and where they were going. At the end of the day, it's the pilot in command, the PIC, their responsibility to fly the airplane, and if they need to land or they need to make command decisions, it's ultimately on them. But the aircrew can also help communicate, like, hey, there's traffic at 3 o'clock, like above us 500 feet. Stuff like that. So that's all I'm going to say about mission pilot. There's also airborne photographer, which is where you can take pictures out the window. Prerequisite for that is mission scanner, so you have to finish mission scanner before you can do airborne photographer, where you get a camera, and then you are given a target that you're supposed to take pictures of, and they will ask you for the coordinates of where the pictures were taken, which direction the plane was facing, which direction you were facing, like north, south, east, west, or if you can give them the number in degrees, then that's always nice too. And that allows whoever the client is, like whoever is asking for the pictures, for them to just get a general idea of like if there's damage from like a hurricane or flooding, or if there's something else going on the ground, then they have that information. Sometimes they have a little GoPro that can attach to the bottom of the wing, but there has to be a very specific attachment to the wing that they put on first before you can put such a device on. So it depends on the plane that you have, but most times if you're doing airborne photography, you just have a handheld camera. At least for now, you just have a handheld camera. You point it out towards the window and you look, you make sure it's properly focused, you take the pictures and try to make sure that they are clear and that the requirements are that like the target is centered and that it takes up a majority of the picture. So that is all I'm going to talk about for aircrew. If you have any questions for me about aerospace related emergency services stuff, like on the aircrew side, or if you have questions on the ground side, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I will be doing those little videos on F&P for most of these things. I can't do mission pilot, but I can talk about the rest of the aircrew stuff, and I can talk about GTM3 and GTM2. So, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and that is all, folks. Until next time, toodles.